If you're trying to start a car rental business, one of the first big mistakes that you can make is buying the wrong cars. Because most people think that the question is, should I lease a car or should I buy a car? But that's not the real question. The real question is, which option gives you the most cash flow, the least risk, and the best chance of growing your fleet without getting trapped in a bad deal? And that matters because the wrong vehicle strategy will kill your rental business before it even gets off the ground. So in this video, I'm gonna break down leasing cars versus buying cars for your car rental business. That includes the pros, the cons, the hidden traps, and when each one actually makes sense. By the end, you know exactly which one will fit your situation if you're trying to start or scale your car rental business. First, we're gonna cover leasing. Leasing is actually pretty simple. To put it in a one kind of sentence summary, leasing is basically renting the car from the bank for a long period of time. You're going to have lower monthly payments, usually a new or newer car, and a lot less money up front. So for a lot of beginners, leasing might feel like the easy way into the business and to be able to acquire cars quickly. You get a nicer car, you have a lower payment, and you're thinking, okay, I can make this work. And on paper, it actually does look like a solid move. Now, when it comes to buying is the opposite. You either buy the car cash or you're financing it. What does that come with? Comes with a higher monthly payment and usually a higher upfront cost. But you actually have ownership in the vehicle and you can run the car exactly how you want. No mileage limits, no restrictions, no worrying about what the bank thinks of it. You're in full control of the asset. But here is where most people mess this up. They're thinking like a car buyer and not a business owner. This isn't about what car feels nice, what car do you actually like, or what car you look good in. This is about cash flow, risk, and what's actually gonna make you money over the long term. The best decision is gonna be the one that makes the business more stable, not exciting. So when does leasing actually make sense? Leasing is not a bad thing, and it can actually make sense in certain situations. It makes sense if you want newer cars in your fleet, you want lower monthly payments, if you're trying to preserve cash on hand, and most importantly, if your numbers are dialed in. This means knowing the utilization rate, knowing the demand, and knowing roughly how many miles are going to be put on the car over a certain period of time. And most importantly, that you already have a clear path of how long you're going to keep the vehicle or what your exit strategy is. Before you enter into a lease, you need to know exactly where your exit strategy is going to be, whether that is financing the car at the end, if that's an option, selling it early. The last thing you want to do is go over mileage, run through the full lease, give the car back to the dealer, have to pay a bunch of penalties, and essentially break even or even lose money. Here is where most people get smoked when it comes to leases. One of the biggest things is mileage limits. Your mileage limits on a lease might only be 10 to 15,000 miles per year. Now that's nothing in the rental business. The next thing is going to be wear and tear. You have to remember that renters are not going to treat cars the way that you treat your own cars. Then there's fees, end of lease charges, penalties, and any small damages that you were not able to collect on during rentals for whatever particular reason. But potentially the biggest one is you have no flexibility when it comes to leasing. You want to get out early without a clear exit plan? Good luck with that. You want to pivot the way you're doing business? You are locked into your lease. So leasing can work great if you know the numbers. If you don't know the numbers, you don't have a clear exit strategy, leasing can be a terrible thing for your business. Now let's talk about when buying a car for your fleet actually makes sense. Buying is where you get to take control. There are no mileage limits. You can run the car whatever way you want to, however much you want to, at whatever rate you please. You can keep it long-term. You can refinance it. You can resell it. You can trade it in. You can actually treat it like a business asset. And if you're picking the right cars, these cars can generate continuous profit long after the car is even paid off. And not to mention, the car is probably going to pay itself off, meaning if you're buying correctly, you're going to retain equity at the end of a financing term. So buying is what you want to do when you're thinking long-term. Now, there are some downsides to buying, and buying cars is not perfect, and it doesn't guarantee great returns either if you're not doing it correctly. The first flaw is going to be you're either putting up more money up front or you're taking on a bigger monthly payment. You're also fully responsible for repairs. Sometimes when it comes to leases, most of the time, they're covered under warranty, really no matter what happens. So you really just have general wear and tear that you have to pay for, not major repairs. When it comes to financing vehicles, depending on how you bought the car, with potential warranties, you may be liable for very big damages when it comes to mechanical failures. With buying, you're essentially fully exposed if something goes wrong. And then, of course, there's a lot of people that end up just buying the wrong cars because they buy what they like, not what the market is actually demanding. Ego purchases will kill you in this business. So here's how I would simplify this comparison. Leasing makes more sense if you want a lower monthly payment, you want newer cars, you already understand your numbers, and if you have a predictable business model. Buying makes sense if you want more flexibility, you want long-term profit, you don't want mileage limits, and you just want full and complete control over the asset. This debate is not about which one is better, it's about what actually fits your situation. So before you make this decision, ask yourself this. How long am I actually keeping this car? How many miles are going to be put on these cars realistically every single month? Can I handle repairs if something goes wrong? Do I need flexibility to get out of this? Most importantly, am I making this decision based on numbers or emotion? For most beginners, I do not recommend jumping straight into leases because you don't have data, you probably don't fully understand your numbers yet, and that right there is exactly where leases can become dangerous. Buying gives you more room to learn, more flexibility, and more margin for error. But once you actually understand your business, your market, your utilization, then you can start to use more strategic options such as leasing. So here's the bottom line. Buying works and leasing works. Neither one is automatically correct. The right decision comes down to your cash flow, your experience level, your risk tolerance, and your actual strategy. So don't choose based on what feels good, choose based on what actually makes the business work. And here you have it, whether you should lease or buy. The real win is choosing a path that helps you grow without losing money in the beginning and making expensive mistakes early on. So if you want help creating that plan for your specific business, click that first link you see in the description below. I do personally a limited number of one-on-one strategy calls where we can map out your best starter vehicles, pricing, renter screening rules, insurance strategies, deposit structures, and your first 60-day scale plan. So click that link in the description, book that call with me. I'll see you there. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you in the next video.